Well, Michael Atkins is an independent elections consultant. He joins us now. Michael, good afternoon to you. I know it's been a long day in the ConCourt, yes, so thank you for coming in. There's several rulings here. Firstly, the ruling about signatures. We'll start with the easy stuff. In the past, after the Electoral Amendment Act was passed and before today's judgment, a political party only had to get 1,000 signatures to go to the Electoral Commission and say, here are 1,000 signatures, can we please stand in an election? And an independent candidate actually had to get 15,000 signatures. That's now changed.
Correct. The court held that the signature requirement was an unfair burden on the participation in elections of independent candidates pursuing the judgment in 2020. So that was quite a strong judgment in favor of the rights of independent candidates to participate. There were strong legal arguments that were overcome to reach that point, but it could be viewed, if you like, as a progressive, participative ruling.
Either way, it's now equal. Political parties, on this thing,
yes,
on this section, political parties and independent candidates have to achieve the same thing. They have to score the same number of goals to get to the next round.
Correct.
Okay. Gets a bit more complicated around constituencies and provinces. So in the past, a political party, before we had independent candidates, a political party would contest nationally and in provinces. Now with independent candidates, people are talking about provinces, and they also use this word constituencies. How does all of these things get sort of mixed in with each other?
For an independent candidate to contest any form of election, there has to be some form of constituency. So what we have, instead of like ward elections at local government, what we have is, for provincial legislatures, the whole province is the constituency, and parties and independent candidates are alongside each other on the ballot. There are issues with that, but it's reasonably clear. What will be less clear for voters is that independent candidates contesting the National Assembly elections may do so only within constituencies which are termed regions. They are the same as the provinces, but the word region is used for intended clarity, and there are two ballots. So voters will cast two National Assembly ballots, the first within their region for either a party or for an independent candidate who is contesting that particular region only, though that name will be on that ballot paper. Then the second ballot is a PR, proportional representation ballot, and those two are then combined for the overall calculations to determine the final composition of the National Assembly.
I think I was halfway there with you for a minute. Okay. So what that means then is that in the past you would vote for whichever political party, and it didn't matter if you were in Cape Town, Joburg, Messina, or in Umlazi, your vote meant that that political party would get that vote, and each vote was counted equally for that political party.
Correct.
What's changed then with candidates and regions? So why does it now matter whether someone's voting for an independent candidate? Say Siya Kolisi runs as an independent candidate. Why does it matter if it's someone who lives in Cape Town or someone who lives in Messina?
Essentially, if all independent candidates were on the same single national ballot, we would have the possibility of too many names on that ballot, because there could be a lot of people standing. And also, if a very popular person were to gain an awful lot of votes, but then assume only a single seat, the distortions to proportionality get quite messy if there was only a single national ballot. So in the original design of the Electoral Amendment Bill, as it was put forward, the idea was used of working within regions for independent candidates, limit the number on the ballot, and limit the distorting effect of having independents on the same ballot.
Okay. So now, as things stand, there are 400 seats in the National Assembly. National Council of Provinces, but ignore you for a moment. So you have 400 seats in the National Assembly, and a party can contest for all of those 400 seats. Can a candidate?
No, that is exactly the point, and it was the point of the challenge. Because candidates can contest only in their regions, there is an old background calculation in the previous Electoral Act, which only parties know about, where the votes from within a region are calculated and lists are filled on that basis. Because independent candidates contest within a region, those regional ballots, it's now a separate ballot, that is in effect a provisional calculation in respect of parties. For independent candidates, it becomes their final determination. So if you stand in Gauteng, you will be calculated and counted only in Gauteng, and the Gauteng regional election will be the independent candidate's final seat allocation. But it isn't the end of the story for parties. Those are only provisional allocations for parties. So what happens after the independent candidates get resolved in the 9 regions, the regional ballots cast, which are for parties, and the PR ballots cast only for parties, are added together, much like local government elections, and an overall PR total is worked out. And it is that total that determines the number of seats a party gets out of the 400 in the National Assembly.
Okay, so in the National Assembly, Siya Kolisi, our imaginary, let me stress, imaginary independent candidate, is running. He gets a lot of support in KwaZulu-Natal because that's where he plays his provincial rugby now. But he also gets support in the Western Cape because that's where he used to play his provincial rugby. So he gets votes from both places. Are you saying then that because he's currently only in the KZN region, running there, the votes from the Western Cape wouldn't matter?
Well, in effect, it's that. He has to decide which region to contest. Now, an independent candidate can contest 2 regions, but if he wins seats in both, well, he obviously forfeits one of those, and all the votes cast in the second region are effectively discarded. So, most likely, the candidates will decide, I'm going to contest this particular region, and they get votes only from that region.
Okay. That would seem to me then, I mean, so there are more seats available for parties to win. So one political party could hypothetically win all 400 seats in the National Assembly, but no independent candidate could do that.
Well, independent candidates, in the scenario that every single vote in the regional elections was cast for independent candidates, the absurd scenario, independent candidates, despite getting all of those votes, would get 200 seats in the National Assembly, and that's it.
Isn't that unfair?
Well, the unfairness comes in the fact that the nub of the case that was brought is that using 2019 data as an illustration, independent candidates still require between 68,000 and 92,000 votes to secure a seat in the National Assembly via one of the regional elections. For political parties, because in the end the final combined calculation uses all 400 seats, it is in effect around 45,000 votes needed for political parties.
Is there grounds for another constitutional case on this?
Legally, that is not possible.
Yes, but morally. Okay, so then when we get to the elections next year, how is the ballot paper going to be different from what it was before? Most of us, in a provincial and national election, you vote twice. One for your province, so I live in Gauteng, I vote once in Gauteng, once nationally. How will it be different next year?
Right, there will be 3 ballots, bearing in mind that people who don't live in metros do cast 3 ballots in local government elections. So take the provincial legislature. You will see parties and independent candidates on the provincial legislature ballot. In my view, because of the unfavourable ruling, if I may describe it that way, for the National Assembly, we may see more candidates contesting those provincial legislatures instead of the National Assembly. So those ballots could be quite long. The IEC has indicated that they have now a 2-column design if the numbers of candidates increases. So that's the provincial legislature. Then there are 2 National Assembly ballots. One is within a region, your local province, and that has independent candidates of any stand and political parties. The other is political parties. Now, why you would have 2 particular votes for political parties, it is confusing, but that is the reality of it.
I was going to say, Michael, I mean, I'm supposed to follow politics for a living. I'm supposed to be vaguely a professional in all of this. And I'm not entirely sure how the ballot paper is going to work next year. I mean, it would seem to me almost a little bit of a recipe for disaster. If people don't understand what they're voting for, they may not accept the result.
Well, that is obviously a separate question. I do foresee potentially more spoiled ballots, and I foresee a significantly longer counting time, which is its own factor in the election results.
Michael Atkins, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure a lot more analysis and views to come on all of this.